Have we ever seen a team win a national title that wasn't in the Trapezoid?
So I've only been doing it in season this is the third year, I think. So no.
I just have to ask because people kind of know that I have a bit of a bias sometimes. Do you think that, they can actually get it done?
Which team?
Arkansas.
To win a national championship? No way.
Tell me who's winning it all and who is your dark horse Cinderella team?
Pace is going to hate me. I have Arizona winning. I am the same way. The teams west of Texas don't win. Arizona's been choking every year. I'll tell you why I trust Arizona this year.
The Behind the Lines podcast is proud to be sponsored by SXBet, the world's most sophisticated crypto betting exchange. Millions traded every month with 0% fees, all on the chain. Never fight for a withdrawal. Your money is always yours using advanced wallet technology. Fair, transparent, and limitless. Bet on SX.
Welcome in. It's Behind the Lines, purifying sports betting, winning with SX. I'm Shane. Pace is here. We've got one of our favorite guests this time of year coming up a little later in the show. Ryan Hammer and his Trapezoid of Excellence is back for March Madness. So stay tuned for that coming up a little later in the show. But Pace, first off, we are coming off a big week at inplayLIVE. Dude, I think these college basketball conference tournaments might be better betting opportunities than the big March Madness tournament itself. I mean, this was just an awesome couple of weeks that we just went through.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that last year was in line with this year. I would actually argue that the first week of the smaller schools is more profitable than the second. I think our group tracking disagrees with that because I think last week was a real banger for a lot of people. But for me personally, now part of the issue I think with college, you're always going to run into some book issues. I don't know if you have, Shane.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've cooked most of the books I've cooked have been cooked this time of year.
Scotty brought something up on the podcast last week that I've actually thought about a lot. And he said, because you're like, oh, so you said to him, you're betting alternate team totals or alternate totals or something like you just kind of threw something out there that you figured was plus money. And he never really answered that. But the truth is he's just not really betting college. And if he does, it'll be these next couple weeks and it'll just be money lines. That's it. He said he looks at a book, he figures out where he can beat the book, and then he decides the most efficient way that he's going to get it to the highest amount of money.
Right.
Well, the truth is when you're betting on college basketball, you're not giving your book the highest probability of getting to its highest amount from the standpoint of like market efficiency and betting handle per sport, except for these next few weeks. That's it, right? So even the conference tournaments, which I think we saw, so you'll see some offshore sports books that will actually show you the betting limit per market. So like obviously Pinnacle Bookmaker, you can go click the Bet Max button.
Yep.
There are some other books that allow you to do that. And there's definitely some higher limits for the actual tournament games these last couple of weeks. But this is kind of like one of those betting calendar annual moments that like the whole betting world focuses on. All the recreational players, we start seeing brackets for things outside of basketball. There's just a lot of hype this time of year. So this is one of those times where you can maximize your sports book betting on college basketball. But I think that the reason why week one was better for me is I didn't run into the same level of book issues that I did in week two. And when I did, it definitely put a little bit of a wrench in the journey. But I mean, that's, as you know, Shane, that's just a part of things. And I find that you can be prepared to a certain degree and something will happen that will throw you off or, a bit of a curveball where you go, geez, I didn't expect this. And it can lead to you not fully being ready for the next opportunity.
Those curveballs definitely come. You had to navigate something this week too. In the middle of it all, you talked about it in your primer. That's within the main Discord group, and if you're not a part of inplayLIVE, you can come check us out. You got the cheap streams where you only have to sign up for a couple of streams, but you can also jump in the free Discord and paste. You posted your primer in the Discord there, and you had a little bit of a misclick.
Yeah. I misclick a lot of shit, I would say, but it's usually me clicking when I screw something up. And I will also bring up that sportsbooks orient their betting menu oftentimes in a way that promotes people making these types of mistakes. So you especially see this in the offshore and like a lot of the Curacao style sports books.
Well, we covered Ozune. What was that, last week or 2 weeks ago, when they were telling you it was one thing, but it was really going in as a different line altogether.
Right, but you'll see like the teams listed as 1 and 2, and for one market, 1 will be on the left, 2 will be on the right, and for the next market, they'll flip it. So if you're like, okay, I'm looking up at the top and I see that the New York Rangers are team number 1 and they're playing against the Bruins, they're team number 2. Great, got it. I clicked on the right team. That process, not a lot of people do betting in the first place, but on top of that, it'll be switched for the market below it. So you think you're clicking the left and you're clicking 1 and you actually just click number 2. So I've had a lot of misclicks in my day, I would say. And I think that no matter what, no matter how disciplined you are, you will make mistakes betting. And of course, on the player side, Shane, we don't get to void them. Whereas the ones that we see them making, they just void, right? We will see in the chat, Shane, I think probably you can agree pretty regularly, where we have maybe a $10 bettor that accidentally bet 100, or a $100 bettor that actually accidentally bet 1,000. It's not common that you have, someone who's spinning $2,500 who adds a 0 and the book takes it. But that's what happened to me on one of my bets last week. And thankfully it won. And, I just made no, it lost. And I didn't know until after the fact. But it's funny. I actually coached one of our members through this exact same situation where it was 1,000 to 10,000. And he came to me like his world was over. He literally was acting like he would never get it back. I coached him through it. And I think like 2 weeks later, he said, hey, not only have I got it back, but I've doubled what I lost. So, these moments that come up in betting, they're just one big life metaphor. You learn from it, you grow from it, and you move on. What you can't do is let it snowball. So in that moment, you can really derail mentally. And I think that it's important to understand, hey, you know what? This did just happen. I am fucking pissed. I'm going to call it a day. I'm going to call it a night. I'm going to lower my bet sizes. Like, just be responsible and understand and recognize your emotion. If humans were efficient and rational, we wouldn't have the world that we live in today. We are highly emotional and get impacted by things in a big way. So if you can, rather than be like, oh, no, I'm fine. If you can actually go, no, this sucked. I got to recognize that this isn't the best time for me to be making decisions with my bankroll right now, and adjust accordingly.
Yeah, no, great advice there. I mean, yeah, I've been through it too. For me, it was often there was one book in particular that got me with that flipping. So I'd be betting totals and I'd be looking at one side, the over or the under, and consistently betting one side, and then all of a sudden that same book just flipped them. Where it's like, oh, the over's now on the right or the left, and the under's on the left, and they do the swap, and you've just been, clicking the one side, and then all of a sudden you think you've got your bet in, and it's won, and then you go and look at your account balance. You're like, wait a minute, why didn't it refresh? And you go and look at your betting history, and sure enough, you had actually bet the opposite way because of that flip. So beware, because there's a lot of books that pull those kinds of tricks out there.
There's nothing like celebrating in that moment. Because
oh yeah, you think you won, you're like, yes.
Like, what the fuck? Yeah, we've all been there. We've all been there. But yeah, great couple of weeks at inplayLIVE, and I think sometimes you individually as a sports bettor see this success inundated around you. You open up social media and there's some guy playing blackjack winning hundreds of thousands of dollars. You open up someone else's betting story maybe within our group, and you're like, why isn't that me? What am I doing wrong? So it's always important whenever you see runs like this, you do learn if that isn't you. So for me personally, it's been a great couple of weeks, but I did have that glitch. It led to a pretty shitty day for me. You have to take it in the chin and move on, and ultimately, yes, learn from it, but don't let the success of others get in the way of what you're doing. Just stay in your lane and stay focused. Now, outside of your lane, I think this is really cool, and I'm going to bring it up. Joe is a member of inplayLIVE, and when he joined, he decided that he was going to make his progress public with the group. So he posts, I think, only on Instagram.
Yeah.
And his Instagram handle is Joey Betts Wheeler, and Wheeler is with an H after the W. And I know him because he lives in Vancouver, but I've really only hung out with him. You know, Shane, you met him at the event. I think his teeth were knocked out at the event or something like that. And
I think he had some dental surgery or something going on. Yeah, that's something happened.
I've seen his videos now. The dental surgery has happened. But yeah, he posts his success, and I think that that's really commendable because sometimes you have to post when you haven't done well.
Yeah.
And you can see the group doing well, and you're like, oh, geez, like I'm down this much or whatever. But anyways, he had his biggest week in inplayLIVE history last week. He profited $3,331.50. And then last night, we had a short little stream, predominantly hockey, but he won $427 more following us with hockey. He started with $300, and I think he's just eclipsed. I think he's just eclipsed 30, but it might be 25, but 30.
Wow. Let's go, Joe.
You know, and it's funny because I don't want to talk any shit about Kurt coming on. I thought Kurt was amazing. He's the guy that's doing the challenge to $1 million.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So Kurt just made his biggest bet he's ever made.
Right. Because his bank account is growing. His bankroll's growing. So his bets are getting bigger.
Exactly. He just made the biggest bet he's ever made. He's made a $32 bet. And I think about a guy like Joe, and I love what Kurt's doing. Super public, and it's like his research and what he does to get there, right?
Yeah, and he's very disciplined with it.
I think about a guy like Joe, and it's like he's crushing Kurt, you know, because he's following inplayLIVE. And I sent him a message after I saw the $3,331 week update, and I just said, wow, 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 wow. And he's like, I can't thank you enough. He's like, I actually love you, bro. And he's a guy that, you know, wanted to get involved with winning sports betting. And, you know, here he is. I do have some feedback for him. He's far too conservative of a bettor, in my opinion. So with his $25,000, $30,000 bankroll, he's doing like $100 bets still. So he's really got to step it up. Shane, you're like, I get it.
I get it. I understand it, though. I absolutely understand it because, you know, you've lived through those losing runs and, you know, you want to limit your downside and you never know when it's going to come. At least there's stages, I guess I would say, where you never know when it's going to come. But I think now there are certain times of the year where you can scale up quicker, perhaps, and other times of the year where maybe you want to play it a little more closer to the chest.
Yeah, for sure. And I think he's probably in like year 3 now. So it's been a slow grind for him for sure. But at the same time, he loves it. And I mean, if you're pulling in $3,000 a week, you're doing really, really well. So he's starting to hit that spot where the money is getting very, very real. And the learning curve always continues, but maybe starts to plateau a little bit from the standpoint of finding like that level of comfort and going like, hey, I can really do this, which is awesome. Now, there's always a lesson in someone like him. And that's like, if the group's struggling, you get to see that and go, okay, he's struggling too. I'm not alone. And if he's doing really well, you could be like, wow, that's awesome. But if you're not, you can always reach out to a guy like him and say, hey, I didn't have the week that you had. What am I missing?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. He's very friendly guy, very approachable. So yeah, Joe, thanks for being a member of the community and for being the kind of member that you are, sharing your stuff publicly and putting it out there. And love seeing your posts because sometimes I see it too, and I get a little extra motivation when I see his posts on Instagram as well. So really appreciate it.
And really good, really good reminder to be disciplined, right? When you see someone that's posting and they are betting so small, sorry, Joe, consistently, you know, you're like, geez, he's just following the pros and betting his unit size, and that's his result.
And exactly. I mean, look, you know, no one's gonna. No, I don't think anybody should scoff at. You know, if you make $500 in a night betting on sports, that's amazing. Like that's incredible. Yeah. You know, if you can repeat that, you know, multiple times a week, even if you have a couple losing days in there, you're making a few grand a week. I mean, that is absolutely nothing to sneeze at. Nobody, you know, I think would be would look down upon that in any way. So nice work. Pacer, very quickly, the NIT. Do you bet the NIT? Will you bet the NIT? Is the NIT even on your radar at all? Because it's a lot more volume if you are interested in the NIT. I know that there's a major question about motivations, and a lot of what we do with March Madness is around motivations, and what the team's approach is, and the NIT tournament might not be the easiest to read when it comes to that.
I actually have a lot of advice for betting on the NIT because I have in the past.
Yeah.
The first couple of rounds, you sniff out the motivation really, really quickly.
Okay.
So certain teams that were like, there's bubble teams. I don't know this year in particular, but in the past, bubble teams that don't make the tournament that bail on the NIT. They're like, oh no, we're not going. Right. Then there's teams that they go, but the players, they don't want to be there. They want their season done, and they're big favorites, and they lose, and they don't give a shit. And you can see it when you watch the game in their body language on the floor. By the third round, that's all gone.
By the third round, that's all gone. Everybody wants to win.
Yeah.
Anyone who's
Everyone
left wants to win.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So first round, maybe look out, be careful, and see who wants to be there and who doesn't.
Yep.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Good advice there, because we lose a lot of the volume that we had over the last couple of weeks. It goes way, way, way down. And if you're looking for that volume, though, the NIT might be a place to look. And it's very easy to have your eyes start drifting there.
I can literally feel and see your FOMO right now.
Yeah.
I can see it. You're like, well, the season's not over, guys. We got the NIT. We got this shitty tournament to bet on.
It's so true, though, right? Because you do get that we were betting during the day, the middle of the afternoon. You've got a whole slate of games coming through on a regular basis, and then once it disappears, it's like, oh, I enjoyed that. What am I going to do here? Start looking at those other things. I saw some Chinese basketball this morning. I was like, oh, the Chinese league, CBA. Never been on the CBA. Should I look? Check this out? And I was like, no, I got actual work to do.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
You're starting to sound like Randy. Jeez.
Yeah. Randy, by the way, shout out Randy. The guy crushed it over the last couple of weeks. And man, have you ever seen a better show up as level-headed and disciplined as a guy like that? I mean, the guy gets locked in, doesn't call a ton of bets, and when he does call, he wins at like a 90% clip or something like that. It's nuts. Shout out Randy. You're a star, bro.
I love the guy. He's incredible. And he's got a family. He finds his pockets. We don't see him as much on the weekends, right? He's spending that family time. Pretty sure he's got a couple phones under the table at dinner, refreshing some feeds and getting some bets in. But yeah, he's hyper disciplined. Obviously extremely successful. A lot of people might not know this about a guy like him. Extremely successful outside of betting in his personal career. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Does very, very well. So he's a smart guy.
Well, I could see that. I mean, clearly a hard worker, sharp, disciplined. I could absolutely see him succeeding in many parts of life. Absolutely. Pacer, I got a piece of news I want to share before we get to our interview. And I know people want to hear from Ryan Hammer and the Trapezoid of Excellence as they get ready to fill out their brackets. And it's key for me too. But I got to bring this up because I think this is really interesting and kind of concerning if it catches. So New York, right? Pace, we talk a lot about betting, negative influences of betting, specifically looking at younger people, underage people, mostly boys, in their teenage years before they hit whatever the age of what the legal age is, depending on where they live. But for a lot of the states, it's 21 years old. And in New York, it's 21 years old, which to me is kind of old. If you can vote by 18, I mean, you can't place a bet. Like, that's a whole other topic and conversation. But they're looking at, well, how do we protect the young people from the dangers and the evils of sports betting? And we've got a lawmaker out there in New York, and this is being reported on Sports Betting Dime by our guy Robert Linehan, who we've had on the show, and I love to reference his work. He stays up on all things rules, regulations in the sports betting world, and so he's got this out. A lawmaker in New York that's considering looking at implementing biometric data, mandatory biometric data, in order to use a sports book. And the goal here, of course, is to keep underage people from betting, but it would apply to everyone, every user of a sports book that may have to use facial ID recognition or a fingerprint to access the sports book. And of course, the other thing that's mentioned in here is that would also multi-accounting, but specifically people who multi-account for underage people, which I don't know how much of that actually exists, but it's brought up as a reason and a possibility. But this is the kind of piece of potential legislation that I think sportsbooks would just be like, yes, they'd be in full support of something like this, where it becomes mandatory to use that that type of biometric data to access your sportsbook. Now, I know here in Ontario and Pace, I'm sure it might be the same for you. I don't know actually, but here in Ontario, where we're regulated, there are quite a few sportsbooks that will allow you to use your biometric data. So I can pull up my phone and it just instant facial recognition and I'm into my sportsbook. It's awesome. I absolutely love it for the books that are mine, but if I have any buddy accounts or anything like that, I turn it all off, of course, right? I'm not going to use the facial recognition in those. I'd be concerned to see if it was mandatory across all sports books all the time and you had to. What do you think?
I don't know, man. You're such a journalist. Like, it's a fear mongering article, and then you're like passing the fear onto our listeners.
I don't know if this is a fear mongering one at all. This is one where I'd be concerned because once one state adopts these kinds of things, there's that ripple effect
for sure. Well, I think you're like the sports books would be in behind this. They would love this. I think the sports books are behind the article. I think it's the other way around. I think they're the ones that put this forward and get the message out there. I don't think underage gambling is a major problem.
Yeah, I don't think it is as big as they make it seem.
That's the light that they're painting it under to get the public behind it. Like, oh, underage gambling's really bad. Let's make sure that, the 32-year-old that's using the account is the one that's actually betting, and that his son's not running and grabbing the phone and betting on his behalf. It's bullshit. the whole thing is exactly what you said it is designed for. Another example of just like huge push to offshores if something like that were to ever happen. Also, maybe I'll be looking on the black market for people that want to sell their thumbs. But no, I mean, ultimately, I think the sportsbooks would really like this. But we've said this from day one. You can't have it both ways. Once you start dealing with these types of discussions, it points the finger back at why the person can't play on their own account in the first place, and shines a greater light on it from a regulatory standpoint. We've already seen some of that stuff start to get a little bit of traction in Massachusetts. And I don't know if we've said this on the podcast yet, Shane, but it has to be said. It does not matter if you're in Massachusetts or not, which is really important for bettors across the United States. So I don't know if that's in effect yet, but if you've had your DraftKings limited in Arizona, you can still go to Massachusetts and report it and get the reason as to why from DraftKings Sportsbook.
Really? I didn't know that. I didn't. Yeah. Wow. That's amazing.
Right. So with this stuff, you can't have it both ways. So, if you can't play on your own account, then that begs the question of why. They have to provide reason to, at least at this time, the Massachusetts, whatever. That helps give them data on the situation. And when you piece the data together, there's going to be some players that cheated, right? And there will be hard evidence of them cheating, right? When you have patterns of bets that are not CLV, right? I'm not talking about beating the market. I'm talking about beating information, beating the basket, beating the goal, right? So pass post type stuff and Jonte Porter type stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
That to me, I could see the Massachusetts or any board going, hey, this player isn't some advantaged player. This player is gaining information in a fashion that is ahead of the sportsbook's information, right? We understand why this player can no longer play on this site. Now, if you were to take that same rationale and say apply it to one of our accounts, Shane, you're not going to get that same that same information. You're going to get information of grabbing these 5 to maybe 12% edges over time that beat the market that was offered. Fundamental difference. And what you'll see is, between all accounts, is these players won money.
Yeah.
Period. Right. And that's where I just say you can't have it both ways. So if you go, hey, I can't use my friend's account because I have to cut his thumb off in order to use it. Well, why can't I use mine? And this is why. Sportsbooks will get pigeonholed really quickly there, because we've seen some of the with Peta Murphy or we and a couple other hearings.
RIP.
They just call everyone cheaters, and it's just not true.
Yeah, exactly. And they have to provide the Massachusetts law around limiting the regulation there. They can't provide those generic responses. It's got to be like an individualized, specific reason. Because I think that was our concern back when it was first getting floated around, because we've received all the generic responses. Oh, it's a business decision made by our trading team. Like, no, that's not going to cut it. Like, why was that decision made? What was the exact reason? All of that sort of stuff. They got to provide that. So, definitely a win for us there. But when it comes to the biometric stuff, do you use any biometric stuff?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, you use it all the time. Okay, right, yeah. Right. And you got no issue with it with your accounts.
Well, what you're discussing, we're discussing two different things right now.
Yeah.
So, like, if you just take like an iPhone as an example, it's a shortcut to enter your passcode. So if I enter my passcode to enter a password, does the sportsbook see my passcode for my phone? And the answer is no. I know some people are now Operation Greyball at Uber is a proven fact, right? They could see you. They have the technology and the ability to see you, and that stands true for other apps. Now, Travis Kalanick? He sat down with Tim Cook, and Tim Cook said, you are off the App Store in 48 hours if A, B, and C don't happen. And if that conversation didn't happen, number one, Uber might not be here today. Number two, they definitely wouldn't have been a download or a top download on the App Store. So that was quite a long time ago, but that ability does exist. Can they see you enter your passcode? The answer is no. Can they see your face when you entered your face metrics into enter the app or your password? The answer is also no. After that, once you're in the app, it's a different story. That technology is used through the phone to access your passwords. It's the same as me typing in my password. Now, that is different than the sportsbooks requiring some sort of biometric on their side where they have your fingerprint and facial data, and they use that to allow access to your account. So if you're just talking about the Apple version that I mentioned, that's not a big deal. If you're talking about to access the account and they hold that data, that's a different story.
Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about. Like, do you use your facial recognition to access actual betting accounts?
No, I use it for passwords.
Just for passwords.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff. Something to keep an eye on anyway. But Pacer, it's probably time to get back to March Madness, because I think that's what the people really want. So let's bring in our guest. Really excited to welcome back Ryan Hammer to the show. He's the host of the Blue Blooded podcast. He's a college hoops aficionado and the creator of the Trapezoid of Excellence. Ryan, how you doing, man? Really happy to have you back on the show.
Yeah, it's good to see you guys. It's like it's an annual occurrence for us. So.
Yes, sir.
It absolutely is, and it's resonating with our audience. I had people reaching out to me. Hey, are you bringing that guy with the trapezoid back on the show? They want to know, because they're basing their picks. A lot of people in our audience are basing their picks off of your trapezoid.
So don't rely on everything, but use it with educated intention, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it comes through. It comes through. Before we sort of get into the teams, who we like and who we don't, first, I'm bringing it up here so everybody can see. This is your latest Trapezoid of Excellence posted on your Twitter account at RyanHammer09 earlier today. So I'm assuming this is the very latest one that we've got here.
Yes.
First, this is it. Okay. So for people who don't know it, just explain the axes, how they work, how we've laid out the teams on the grid.
Yeah, it's pace going horizontal and a net rate, adjusted net rating, which is overall efficiency and quality by the analytics going vertically, adjusted for opponent, which is obviously important. The theory is that the faster or slower you play, the better you have to be at that outlier style to be able to compete at the highest level to win a national championship and get to a Final Four and just succeed in March in general. It's not end all be all. There are fast teams like Alabama who go on tournament runs, but those teams end up falling short at some point and not winning the national championship, and same for the slower side. And I also use it for finding disparity, not just the teams in there, which everyone gets obsessed with, which I get. But if Alabama played Iowa, for example, on opposite sides of the spectrum, and all the teams kind of between them, where I use it for that also. So,
have we ever seen a team win a national title that wasn't in the trapezoid?
So I've only been doing it in season this is the third year, I think. So no, but it's also based off of historical champions, right? Like I think Virginia technically might have been out of it in 2019 when they won, but I use the data points from historical champions to build the shape of what it is, to be like, okay, the proof is in historical data and the recent champions and how they've played relative to the national standard, national average of pace and quality. So no, as long as I've been doing it, at least.
Well, and that's why we keep bringing it back, because we keep seeing teams in the trapezoid win, and that's why people want to see it. So here's what we've got, though. This, to me, though, looks like an empty trapezoid compared to years past. There's a lot fewer teams in the trapezoid this year. Am I right?
Yeah, and it's funny because like I adjusted for overall quality, like I said, where if Duke was up there alone and everyone else was like 25 and below, where like Illinois is and UConn and all below that, it would stretch really far down to include a certain percentage of the top contenders. But it just happens to be that the top teams have been amazing. Duke, Michigan, Arizona are the three that everyone obviously knows about. They've been the 3 1 seeds of the 4 1 seeds for so long. But Iowa State, Gonzaga in there, and even the Houston, Purdue, Illinois, UConn, Florida, people were kind of thought were going to be as good as some of those top teams. And it turns out they're not fully there, but they kind of are. Like, I wouldn't discredit any of those teams from winning, because a little bit of a tournament run and they will be in the trapezoid, because Houston, Purdue, Illinois, UConn just need to up in quality, and same for Florida, and winning 2 or 3 tournament games, if not 4, 5, or 6, but absolutely do that. But absolutely, it does feel a little empty in there.
It almost looks like the trapezoid is pushing some teams out. Like they're trying to get through. Like they're trying to get through, and Ryan's like, "No, you got to break through." Like it's like a border where it's really cool.
Yeah, Louisville and Vanderbilt have been 2 of those teams all year. Where like Virginia, Michigan State, UConn, those teams out left have been in there, in and out, and even like Texas Tech. But Louisville and Vandy, especially Louisville, as they've just not been amazing all year, they've been those teams that are like right on the cusp all the time. And I'm like, this doesn't make sense why they're so close to being in, but I don't do the math and the data. So
we touched on this last year as well, but if you're touching the trapezoid, so I'm looking at Florida, I'm looking at Illinois, I'm looking at Louisville, are they in, or like, where does the logo? Yeah,
it's central data point to the logo. I'm not going to use dots because that's not fun and you can't see the logos. Obviously, people are so funny because like Michigan State's a good example. People will like zoom in really far and there's like a little bit of the logo sneaking in. Like, dog, I'm like, they're not in there. But back to what I said before, like if a part of them are in, they're obviously close enough where the tournament run will put them in, because I don't do it pre-tournament going into the tournament to need to win. I haven't even looked into that in the past. I think it's way too complicated and I'd rather keep it like this anyway. But like Florida, Illinois, like a tournament run to the Final Four and for a title, like they would be well within this.
Right.
Okay. If we're looking, like, obviously we know we like the teams in the trapezoid, and Duke is up there, like you mentioned, Michigan and Arizona, both number 1 seeds as well. If we're starting to look outside the trapezoid, is there anyone you like? Like, I'm looking at Alabama all the way over there as an outlier. I remember from last year, they were kind of an outlier as well. Same thing in speed, just way faster than everybody else. Who do you like to make a run or to go deep in this tournament that isn't in the trapezoid?
Yeah, I like Virginia. I don't like their draw a lot. I love the way they play and everything. They're technically outside of it, obviously, but Tennessee and Iowa State is not an easy draw in the first. Tennessee would be first weekend, and Iowa State would be Sweet 16 if they get there. If Iowa State gets there, there's always a team from the middle, like that middle cluster where Texas Tech, Utah State, Carolina, always someone that makes a tournament run in there. Clemson, when they were 6 seed a couple of years ago, went to the Elite Eight. They were in there. I forget exactly who else been recently, but there's always someone who wins a couple of games out of there, and it's hard to figure out who. I like Utah State a lot. hate their draw. They're going to have to play Arizona in the second round, and they don't deserve that. They are much better than what a 9 seed, even an 8 seed, I think is, but that is what it is. I don't hate Texas Tech's ability to make a run because they're playing Akron, who I actually like their matchup, even though everyone's on Akron for that. And then they do the winner of Alabama and Hofstra. And I think the way the guards have played for Texas Tech, as long as Christian Anderson is fully good, which he says he is, I still think they can do that because they defend the 3 so well. They shoot the 3 so well. I even think Kansas is a team to watch because we've seen them at their peak for a couple of games this year. And I love Wisconsin, but Wisconsin's got to play Arkansas, who I also love, in the second round. And then whoever wins that gets to play Arizona also. So Wisconsin and Arkansas, I hate their draw. Texas Tech and Kansas are the 2 teams that I'm like, interesting. Okay.
So just where are the Jayhawks on the board there? I'm trying to find the logo and I can't see it.
It's under Texas Tech and Utah State.
Oh, there they are. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's quite a cluster there. Yeah. Awesome stuff. Yeah. So, I mean, last year I'm with college sports in general, like I'm a big believer in conference play elevating amidst other conferences. So, you know, you kind of always have to highlight the SEC whenever that conversation comes up. We saw Florida win the SEC last year. We saw Florida go on to win the national champions. Vanderbilt did the hard work for the SEC championship on Arkansas's behalf by taking them out last week. I mean, I just have to ask because people kind of know that I have a bit of a bias sometimes. Do you think that, you know, they can actually get it done?
Which team?
Arkansas.
To win a national championship? No way.
Whoa.
No shot.
Not a chance.
Their defense, any kind of data point, and even eye test, Arkansas fans will tell you that. They know they're not winning a national championship. I love them, and I've talked them up all year. I think they can make an Elite Eight, Final Four run. I just like they're not going to be able to win 6. I don't think they've won 6 games in a row all year. That's my guess, and they're not going to win 6 games in a row, especially as the competition gets better and better. I like the way they play. It's just very stylistically matchup dependent because like when they played teams like Michigan State and Duke earlier in the year, granted it was earlier in the year, but they were still a very good team. They play those teams that are disciplined and organized, and they like to, I say, let the boys hoop. That's how Arkansas plays. So when they play teams like that, like the SEC is so friendly to, it works out well for them. But winning a national championship, I don't see it happening. Okay.
Point taken there. Same discussion, but Wisconsin, who just came through the Big Ten.
Same thing. And they're going to play each other, obviously, right? And I think both of them have the ability to beat Arizona on their peak night, without a doubt. It's not going to be easy, and they have to beat each other. Wisconsin also has to beat High Point, which is probably the toughest 5-12 matchup. Like, I don't think Wisconsin's not going to win a national championship. Again, Wisconsin fans know that. I actually hate that they've played so well because 2 weeks ago, I was getting real excited to pick them as like a 7 seed, maybe a 6 to the Elite Eight, Final Four, and people were going to be too scared to. But then they worked up into a 5. I thought they might even get a 4, and they're in that territory where those first weekend matchups I absolutely despise.
Right. Okay. And then I'm just going through a few fan favorites here. I think I see them on the edge of the trapezoid, but I'm not 100% sure. St. John's.
St. John's, yeah, they're on the cusp a little bit. St. John's is the hottest dark horse pick in the country, like without a doubt. Everyone and their mother is already talking about St. John's is going to be Duke. St. John's is going to be Kansas. St. John's is going to play UConn again. If St. John's and UConn have another matchup in the Elite Eight in DC, like the TV ratings would absolutely break off the scale. And I don't think it's going to happen. St. John's is similar to last year in a sense. They were not good in the non-con slate. They were amazing in Big East play. And then they kind of fell flat on their face in the tournament. I don't think it's going to necessarily happen exactly that way because the matchups aren't like terrible. But they play Kansas in the second round. They played Arkansas in the second round last year, which both I don't think are friendly to them. And St. John's, they're 0-3 this year versus tournament teams that aren't from the Big East. They lost to Alabama earlier in the year and Iowa State. And I forget who the other third one was, but they're 0-3. They were 1-2 in that situation last year. The Big East is more physical, less threes, slower pace. That doesn't suit you well for March. That's why I point to like UConn is the opposite. UConn was so good versus Arizona, versus Florida, versus Illinois and Texas and beating all these teams except for Arizona. But then the Big East, they struggle because that style is not friendly to the postseason tournament where St. John's is the exact opposite. So I don't trust St. John's.
Okay. So St. John's, sorry, Shane, is sitting at 80-1. We're going to throw that in the trash.
Don't just live and die by what I say. This is my opinion.
No. But I mean, let's stick to the trapezoid here. We'll throw the 80-1 in the trash because, like you said, fan favorite.
Especially when you're talking to win the national championship. Like I'm not an avid gambler. I've done my fair share in the past, and I'm privy to it. I get it. The 80-1 like you're trying to find long shots. There aren't going to be many long shots that make sense. There's the 3 contenders at the top: Duke, Michigan, Arizona. Florida is close. Iowa State is close. After that, I get very questionable.
Well, I mean, Iowa State is sitting at 17.0. Is that Gonzaga under Arizona there?
It is, yeah. I don't win a national championship. I don't know if I would trust that. The efficiency metrics a little inflated for them.
So just a couple of the names that you highlighted there, though. Iowa State 17. That is a really nice looking long shot sitting in the heart of that trapezoid.
Yeah.
UConn, I know they're on the corner down there. 30-1, and Gonzaga 55-1.
I like, me personally at least, like, especially with such a top heavy part of the country, I like the Final Four odds of teams like that. Like Gonzaga's Final Four odds are still probably relatively long shot as well. But I don't hate looking into those things versus like, if they get to the Final Four and they have to play their bottom right or top, their bottom right, so they'd have to play Arizona and then Duke. Like they're not going to win those games back to back.
Right. I'm just looking at some of those odds now that you're bringing those up. Sorry, the Final Four you were saying?
Yeah, because I'm just saying, like, I like the long shot stuff also in terms of if I was to get on the markets and whatever. But, like, I'm not going to go pick Purdue to win the national championship, and I'm probably not going to pick UConn or even, like, St. John's is a good example if you do like them. But to make the Final Four or make an Elite Eight run, like, those are things that seem more attainable and will still have long enough odds to give out good payouts, I feel like.
For sure. So Gonzaga's obviously got to get through Arizona, but plus 675. What was the other one that you mentioned that was a Gonzaga? Definitely a dog as well.
Yeah.
Gonzaga is one of those teams that I'm looking at as a bracket kind of differentiator. You know, we've got a team here that's clearly in the trapezoid, well into the trapezoid, that I think generally, you know, the public is going to lean towards those 1 seed and 2 seeds. And Gonzaga's sitting there, I think, as a 3 seed. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Gonzaga's a 3 seed, and I'm looking at it going like, taking Gonzaga to go deep is going to make my bracket different than a lot of other brackets.
They statistically, I got to find this sheet again. They statistically have the easiest path to the Elite Eight, Sweet 16, Final Four of any of the 3 seeds, and it's like not even remotely close. I definitely have it right here. Here it is. It's like bright green. Not even close, as they have a 93% chance of the Sweet 16, 65 to the Elite Eight, and 49 to the Final Four, all based off of adjusted efficiencies, versus like they have 93, 65, 49. Michigan State, for example, is 66, 48, 36. So their path is so friendly because they might have to play BYU, AJ DeBanza, which is going to be tough, but they really should get to the Sweet 16 again for the 10th time in 11 tournaments. And then they'd have to play Purdue, who I think is a great matchup for both of them. So.
Right. Yeah. I'm looking at them pretty closely here. I wanted to ask about a couple of first round potential upsets, and we've talked about St. John's here. St. John's taking on Northern Iowa. Like, could we see St. John's bounce?
No one's going to pick that. I have a video that I have not posted yet. I will share with you guys anyway. It's all analyzing the 5-12 matchups. I don't like any of the matchups except for maybe UNI. I will pick St. John's because the rebounding margin is a problem. UNI, not a good rebounding team, not physical enough. St. John's crashes the glass, tons of second chance points to just create easy buckets and easy extra possessions. But UNI, the defense is so good. They play so slow that if they start hitting their shots like they have been the last 10 games, they're shooting 41% from 3, one of the best in the country in the last 10 games. And that's why they won Arch Madness because of that. If they can start hitting those shots like Drake did last year against Missouri, all of a sudden St. John's starts to panic a little bit if they're not hitting shots because St. John's is terrible at outside shooting. So they're going to have to rely on their guards more than they have in Big East play. So I get slightly worried about that game for St. John's on top of their style just not being friendly to the tournament. So like if you're hell-bent, like I'm definitely picking Kansas to the Sweet 16 and you're 50-50 on St. John's, UNI, you might as well at that point. Even if they lose by 40, UNI, well, great. I have Kansas winning the next game anyway.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking too. Exactly. If I've got Kansas going further, you know, why not go for the upset there? The other one I'm looking at is Alabama Hofstra, and we've got 2 teams on complete opposite ends here of the trapezoid. So, what do you think of that matchup?
Yeah, that one is super interesting because if you watch Hofstra play, you assume that, like, if you look at their roster build, you assume that they can run it up. And they have played in a couple, not like track meets, I want to say, but they've played in a couple high-scoring games. They have 2 guards, Preston Edmeade and Cruz Davis, a freshman and a senior, who are like the prototypical mid-major, shifty, small guards who could just be cold and just go absolutely crazy. And they're both play together. They play a slow style, but they can play a little faster, and Alabama is going to want to play fast. I'm worried that Hofstra gets sucked into that a little bit because their guards can speed it up, and then they get tired, and Alabama kind of just takes control of that game. But it's the same thing. If those two guards are hitting early and they're smart about it, which Speedy Claxton is a good coach, I do believe in him, then they can actually win that game. It's a tough one because I love Hofstra. I just don't love how outlier Alabama is. Like if it was like an Arkansas, I'd be much more inclined to be excited about that. It's a big difference.
Right. Pace, anything you're seeing there on the odds screen when you look at the futures or anything like that, anything else jumping out to you?
I just don't know how he keeps talking so much shit about the SEC champions. I mean, he's just barking all over this.
No, that was a stylistic. I said it before. I love Arkansas. Absolutely love them. I hate their draw. Hate it. Before the tournament on Sunday, yesterday morning, I was literally telling my brothers who were with me, I said, telling you, dude, you always peg out teams beforehand that you're like, that I will pick them deep. It was Wisconsin and Arkansas together and Arizona as my national champion, and they all got pushed together.
I guess, Shane, to answer your question, what I like to see is when we actually watch these teams in the tournament, for me, that's the start of the season, right? So I look at the teams that I've seen show me that they're beatable. And I just watched Michigan lose.
Yeah.
So is everyone else, right? So they start to get hyped on teams like Arkansas and teams like Wisconsin that, just got the job done. And I think there is something to that as well, right? Those final 5 minutes of a tournament game where your season is on the line are 5 minutes that you can't practice for, period. You just do not emulate them anytime during the season. Now, can you be clutch? Can you break the press? Can you make your free throws? Like the list goes on and on. You can practice all that stuff. I'm talking about circumstantially when it comes down to it, executing. And, that's where you look at a team like UConn and you go, holy smokes, they've got the coach that's done it time and again. Those kids will be as well coached and as ready for closing out games as anyone. Now, will they be in a position to actually do that is another story, right? So I've seen year in, year out, Arizona just kind of fall on their face. So now this season is supposed to be a little bit different. That like just looking at that A logo, I just immediately go, no chance. Like I just don't know that if they're going to be built and ready for it, right? And we're getting the same hype on Duke as we got last year, just minus obviously the two superstars that they had. Obviously, they have amazing players on their team again, but it's not the same level of hype with Flag and Knippel gone. It might be their year. I don't know. I think odds wise for me, I'm just looking at some of the real long shots. Obviously Michigan, Arizona, and Duke just aren't going to excite me. Florida starts to get a little bit exciting odds wise. But I think that Iowa State number is where I'm starting to go like, okay, can these guys get it done at 17.0? They have good value to reach the final, to win, to make the Final Four. That to me is exciting. But some of those longer odds like Gonzaga to make the Final Four, that 6.75. I mean, I'll keep an eye on these teams. I don't think I'm going to place any futures based on Ryan talking me off a few of the teams. I was like, I'm definitely taking Arkansas to win, but
no, don't be like that.
Well, I mean, you have their valid points, right? And I think that's important. I think winning the SEC does mean a lot, but at the same time, you do have a couple of schools there that maybe go, hey, this isn't the real tournament for us.
If they win the national championship, I'll pay out whatever you mark that you were looking at. Gladly.
Wow.
Free roll himself.
Yeah. Okay, Ryan, we know you're up against it here. You got to get going, and we don't want to take too much of your time. Before you go, though, tell me who's winning it all. And who is your dark horse Cinderella team?
Pace going to hate me. I have Arizona winning. I am the same way. The teams west of Texas don't win. Arizona's been choking every year. I'll tell you why I trust Arizona this year. One, they have a record, I think it's 12 wins versus AP top 25 ranked teams before the tournament. That's an all-time record. No one's ever had that. It's 38% of their wins. They are the only team in the country that every single time I've watched them and every single game, I say, damn, they're elite. Duke, second half versus Texas Tech, I said, what kind of team is this? Michigan, like you said before, there have been many times throughout the year where I'm like, what am I watching right now? This team looks awful, even if it's for 10 minutes. Not once for Arizona have I said that to myself at all. They have experience. They have premier draft talent. Tommy Lloyd is a great coach. He comes from the Gonzaga system and Gonzaga coaching tree. This is year 5 for him. When they were a 1 seed in his first year with Benedict Mathurin team, their defense was terrible. Their defense is so much more improved. They're big. They're athletic. They have 8 guys in the rotation that are very good. So they're deep, but they don't go too deep. They have a closer proven in Jaden Bradley. Like, they have everything you want in a team that's going to win the national championship, and they have the least questions, and they have played better versus the better opponents. The better the opponent gets, the more they show up. And we talked about before, like, you don't have those moments to practice of closing out a game in the NCAA tournament. They played Iowa State in the semifinal and even Houston in the final of the Big 12. It felt like a Final Four, Elite Eight, national championship level games, and they were all about that. And they were all about those moments, and I think they want more. I trust them more than I ever have. I'm usually the same anti-Arizona. I'll go elsewhere. And I think the Big 12 has been historically good at the top. Iowa State's been great. Houston's still awesome. Texas Tech and Kansas have had their moments. Like, I trust Arizona with everything right now.
I mean, they definitely get their test in that Big 12 tournament. There's no question about it. And Houston's been one of those teams where if they aren't a test, I don't know who is. You know what I mean? So they did get it done against them. They got it done late. Yeah, I'm with you there. That is definitely I think the in-season, like the end of conference tournaments are, especially in those Power 4 conferences, are definitely a real test.
I didn't answer the second question. I just realized that. My dark horse is UCLA. They seem like they're kind of out there on their own a little bit in a bad spot. Last 5 games, Big Ten tournament, and leaking into the regular season a little bit. They've been a top 5 team in the country analytically on Torvik. Donovan Dent and Bilodeau are good to go. They're healthy, they say. Donovan Dent has like a 12-to-1 assist to turnover ratio in the last 7 games. He's been absolutely unbelievable. They've been shooting the ball at great clip all season. They play a slow-paced style that I think they should be able to handle UCF. And then they play UConn in the second round, who I think they have a pretty good matchup against. As the dogs go crazy, they're excited.
Well, there we go.
Does a 7 seed count as our Cinderella?
I think they're going to be. I'm going to pick them beating UConn. That's why I say that.
Okay,
but I don't see like South Florida. They have the makings of a tournament run, but I don't love their matchup against Michigan State is the problem. But South Florida is a team that I could get behind also as an 11.
It also sounds like, based on your analysis of Hofstra, if it does fit the mold the way you described it, they could be a team to go on an early run if they could somehow get by Bama.
Say that one more time, sorry?
Hofstra, if they could somehow get by Bama, like you mentioned, they could be exciting for a couple rounds.
They could. They're probably either going to lose by 20 or win that game, to be completely honest. I just don't know which way it's going to go.
No one does. No
one does. And that's what makes March so much fun. Well, that's why we love the madness. And Ryan, that's why we love having you here on the show to give us your breakdowns and show us the trapezoid. Thanks so much for coming on, my man.
Appreciate y'all having me. She wasn't here last year, the one barking, to be fair. So she's a new one in the house. She's less than a year old. But she's very excited. She thanks you very much for having me on.
March is all about the dogs barking. We love it.
Appreciate y'all, man.
Thanks a lot, Ryan. All right, that was Ryan Hammer. A lot of fun having him on. Always love talking about the trapezoid there, Pace. We went through, you were looking at some odds there as we kind of went through it all. And so I think we got to plant a flag here. And why don't we both take a future, call out a future, and stand by, give everybody something to cheer for. Of course, these are just for fun, nothing serious here. Definitely not a big part of our betting portfolios in any way, but I think it'd be fun to plant a flag and take a future. So Pacer, I'll go first here because this is a trapezoid team. They're well in the trapezoid. Hammerton wasn't too keen on them winning the whole thing, but he made it very clear that they have one of the easiest paths to get to the Final Four. And when you look at the odds, I think it makes a lot of sense. I'm taking Gonzaga, 60-1 to win it all. And to reach the Final Four, they're paying 7.5 to 1. So, I think that makes a ton of sense. I think he was saying something like they have a 50% probability to get there to the Final Four. And you're looking at 7.5 to 1. I'll take that any day of the week. And why not take a shot on them to win it all? When we're getting odds of 60-1, sign me up.
Yeah, they definitely their path. No one's path is ever going to be easy. You start looking at it and you're like, oh my god. But yeah, they'll have to get through, BYU, potentially Purdue, and then obviously to get to the Final Four, they're gonna have to beat one of the best, but I mean, at those odds, it's crazy. And one of the things to look at in the futures, and I think this is a good way to do it, is rewind to like the Sweet 16, right? Where you go, oh my God, they're so favored to win the Sweet 16, like to be in the Sweet 16. And then look at what would the odds be right now if those two teams played each other. So if you were to handicap the game itself and go, would Gonzaga be a dog? Yes. How big of a dog would they be? Do you like the price you're getting for them to advance to that next round? And this brings me back to Arkansas. Okay. So
all right. So we're staying in the same area here too. All right.
In theory, Arkansas is going to run into Arizona in the Sweet 16.
Yeah.
Now, if they don't get there, they don't get there. It's just it's dead, right? So they're massive favorites to make the Sweet 16, but to make the Elite 8, they're quite a big dog, as they should be. 5.5 just to make the Elite 8. And I look at it and I go, 5.5 to beat Arizona. And of course, that's not the bet itself, but I'm like, hey, that's a good bet. So I'm going to take a little crack at that. I like your Gonzaga shot in the dark there. Both, Arkansas's touching the corner, that trapezoid. And then obviously just anyone in there, I think, is a great bracket opportunity if you see them playing someone that's an outlying team, where you go, this team's efficiency metrics based on Ryan's data is appealing in this spot. This could be a good upset opportunity. So as we know, Shane, the madness is about to begin. And whatever we think was value or thought, of who was good or bad, buckle up, baby.
Oh yeah, I mean,
the dogs are gonna be barking.
They're gonna be barking, and this coming out on Wednesday, and by Saturday morning, it's very possible that we're just sitting there just marking down X's and putting zeros in the tracker, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
it's just how it goes. But it'll be a lot of fun getting through Thursday and Friday, definitely. And if you go through all the matchups and everything and you see some dogs you like, you can get them on SX. They've got all the games. They've got odds loaded already for every single game out there. So take a look there. If there's any of those first round upsets that you really, really, like, go check out the odds over there. Chances are you'll get the best odds at SX over anywhere else. And Pacer, people can just, if you're not a part of inplayLIVE, you can sign up and just join for like one of those days, right? Thursday or Friday, where it's a monster day. We got 16 games both days. People can sign up for just one of those days and hop on the stream, right?
Yep, you can join one day a week. I got an email last night saying I just couldn't commit to the streams, and it's like, hey, I totally get it. And I said, let's pick one night and lock in. So people have really enjoyed that. Or you can grab our what's called our heavy subscription, and that's for 3 a week that fit your schedule as well. So this time of year, 3 is obviously great. So yeah, buckle up. Couple pieces of advice for everybody before they start betting the tournament. We say this every year in this podcast, but I think sometimes you need to repeat it. Number 1, don't let your bracket dictate your bets.
Yep.
We inherently get emotionally attached to something that we have chosen. There's no reason for it. It's just what happens organically. So if you have Arkansas in your bracket, right, let it go the second that they don't look good and focus on value that appears next based on what you're watching. Second is right in line is don't bet with emotion. And third, this probably is the biggest trap of March Madness altogether, and that is the Cinderella team, whoever they end up being this year. By the time everyone knows about it, it's too late.
Yeah, great advice there. Yeah, everybody always wants to hop on that Cinderella team, and by the time everybody is on it, that's when they're going to lose. We're talking about Sweet 16, Elite 8, somewhere around there. They're probably going to get bounced, right? And that's when everybody wants to start betting on them.
I mean, who didn't want to see McNeese do it all with the fucking boombox walking out loud? But the gig ends up running out
eventually. Yeah, exactly. All right, great advice there, Pacer. All right, well, to you, to Ryan Hammer, to sports bettors around the world. Till next week, keep beating those Bucks. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Behind the Lines. Remember to like, download, and subscribe. We are on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcasts. Have a betting story or want to be featured on our podcast? Drop a note in the comments below. And if you want to join in Play Live, use promo code Behind the Lines.